Hello, Andy. This is Colin. I won't be able to get in tonight. I'm sweating like a pig.
And we're back. It's One Up Gaming. It's episode 350 of the One Up Gaming podcast. So it's me, David, and we've got a special guest. If you want to introduce yourself and what do you do, please?
Sure. I'm Joseph Dowling. I work for Four Quarters, one of the original founders of Four Quarters, which is the UK's original arcade bar. And I'm also a writer.
So about the arcade bar, because I was looking into doing something like an arcade bar, but with like retro consoles.
Yeah.
Where people would come in, pay like £5 or whatever, or £2, get an hour's time.
Yeah.
But it just worked out that it's probably not worth the effort for the money coming in. So would you say your bar is more the drinks and stuff and the games and arcades are just the added bonus?
Yeah, I'd say it's our USP, but we've always had the philosophy that it's bar first, gaming second. And I think there's other models where people maybe go the other way around, and we want to be a bar that people would want to go and drink in, even if they're not gamers. So that means good drinks, good atmosphere, and a good game selection. But plenty of our customers are not necessarily there for the games, and all 5 of our bars are very different. So our flagship bar in Elephant and Castle is packed to the rafters with consoles and arcades. It's got 30 arcade machines. But the site in Hackney's got a big outdoor beer garden where in the summer maybe might be 100 people out in that beer garden, and a lot of those people aren't that interested, if at all interested, in the games angle. We're talking about other models. I mean, Arcade Club are the obvious ones. They do a paid entry model of £10 or whatever, and their bar is less important for them. But it's always been bar first for us.
So do you ever sell the old arcades and put the money into new arcades, or do you just collect everything that you've got?
Well, we probably are a bit too much on the side of hoarding, but we're trying to get better at that. So we do trade a bit. Our arcade engineer Tom, he works full time on that side of the business, and we do a bit of trading. I mean, our mindset a few years ago was don't sell anything, but now, just because we're running out of space, we like to try and get new machines in, and it's a bit of a one in, one out policy at times now, just because we've got a lot of machines that maybe aren't that attractive to our customer base because they're maybe a bit too difficult, or machines we've had a bit of technical problems with that aren't maybe durable enough for the rigors of being on a site where everyone's drinking and smashing the controllers and not being as gentle as you might hope if you've got your pristine arcade cab that you don't want a scratch on.
So I mean, if you know anyone that might be selling either a Ridge Racer or a Sega Rally or a Virtua Fighter 2 cab, I'd be very interested.
Well, I think we've got a Virtua Fighter 2. We've got all those machines, but I don't think they're the ones we'd want to get rid of. I mean, Twin Racers they're just such popular machines, and we'd love to get more of those, I think. But upright single-player Sega Rallies, they come up quite a bit, so you shouldn't have too much trouble getting one of them or a Daytona. But Virtua Fighter 2, I think they come up. But the sit-down, you need a lot of space for those. The old twin racers.
I mean, I was interested in the arcade Oneups, but there's hardly any of them in the UK. A lot of them are just American only.
Right, I'm not too familiar with that, unfortunately.
We'll carry on. So you've wrote a book, and now you've got, is it your second one you're getting ready?
It is. I've got a dystopian thriller out on a small press from America called Mandate 13, but what will be much more of interest to your listeners will be my book I'm about to release, which is a self-published book called The Outrunners, which is heavily video games influenced. It's actually the first novel I wrote, but I've finally got round to polishing it and making it fit for consumption. And it's set in 1983 in the golden age of video games in San Jose. It's about it's a coming of age story about a snarky English goth who moves to California when her dad gets a job at Atari, and the three boys who are essentially her suitors. And it's a coming of age story, but the arcades feature very heavily. The climax of the story involves a big arcade Olympiad where the three, some of the boys are competing on various arcade machines, and it's a constant presence throughout the story. Is that sort of classic arcades, the music of the time, the movies of the time. So it's quite a nostalgia piece.
So, have you sort of like got the arcades period correct, sort of thing? So it'd be like the late 70s, early 80s arcades in there, or have you added a couple more? Just
well, I'm pretty fastidious with my research. I'd like to think I haven't made any mistakes. My only problem I've hit with this is the characters. They're much more skilled than I am. They're more on your Billy Mitchell level than your Joe Dowling level of ability. So I haven't got anywhere near the skill level my characters have. So hopefully I haven't messed up with any of the intricacies, because like I say, the games do feature quite heavily. Defender, Tron, Pac-Man, Missile Command, Robotron, all these classics. And I've got to say, I'm not brilliant at any of these games. So I probably wouldn't be threatening the high scoreboards even on any of those games, as much as I love to play a lot of them. But no, I've definitely researched all the dates, and there shouldn't be any inaccuracies there. Star Wars, the Star Wars sit-down cab is featured in the book, and that's like a new arrival, and everyone's like, look at this, the Holy Grail. And then later in the book, what is it? The laser Gauntlet, the Laserdisc game has just been released, so it should all be consistent with the dates.
Yeah. Did you ever think of changing it to the late 80s so you could have Sega's Racer Outrunners in there?
Well, not specifically. I mean, I'm potentially writing a follow-up that would be set in the mid-90s, so I can do a bit more of that era. I mean, you're singing off my hymn sheet. Late 80s is my era too, in terms of I think that was when there was the biggest excitement around arcades, because they were just so much better than the home console. So you're probably a similar age to me. Your mind was just blown away by these games. I remember stepping into my local minicab office, which is where I discovered a love of arcades, and seeing these machines. I had a little Spectrum at home or whatever, some a tape computer, and just the difference. It was like later into the 90s. Obviously, the home computers caught up and exceeded in many respects what was in the arcades. But back then, if you wanted to get that experience, you had to go and put your 10p or your 20p's in and play it in the arcades.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game, the 4-player co-op one.
Yeah.
Me and my brother on a holiday at Blue Dolphin. We'd have been about 9, 10.
Yeah.
And we were just putting 20p after 20p in that machine.
Relentless. And that was like 20p wasn't nothing back then, Like Turtles is a staple at all our bars. Everyone loves that 90s IP. But I know exactly what you mean. And for me, it was Operation Wolf. I remember playing that at an arcade in Broadstairs, and just I could never get past the second level. I still can't get past the bloody jungle level. But I just spent all my pocket money there. And then when I discovered arcades, I think it was Pole Position was the one that really grabbed me, and it was 10p. I just put my £1.50 pocket money in that, and I'd never get past the first race. But it was just so much fun. And then they started introducing machines like Smash TV, which was 20p a go, and the credit would last like a minute. So yeah, 20p when you've got like a couple of quid pocket money, it doesn't last very long. And then the 50p games, oh my god.
I mean, I think for me, my eyes opened when Sega first introduced like the Model 2 arcade board. Yeah. So Daytona, Virtua Fighter 2, Sega Rally, all these sort of classics, and I think they were £1 ago.
Wow, yeah, I suppose they couldn't be. I remember by that point I'd probably stopped paying attention. I remember when NBA Jam was 50p a credit, and that would have been in like 1995, and 50p a credit, and you needed like 8 credits just to play a game. It's like, yeah, you're getting out of the realms of affordability now. But so that would be sort of early mid 90s. You're talking with the.
I think about 94 to 96, that sort of. But
Yeah,
I think
the ones you mean. You've got
with the Sega Model 2 board, I think that cost Sega over $1 million to develop. So I think you were paying the tax for how much it cost them to manufacture.
Right, yeah, I mean, that's just Sega through and through, isn't it? They certainly spent a lot of money developing stuff. But those Sega, we've got quite a few of those in the arcade, in our bars, and Sega Rally, Daytona, always popular. And then the Virtua Fighter 2, we've got all those, Virtua Tennis, those interchangeable boards. They're the Crazy Taxi is another one that we use. But yeah, I think I'd stopped following the arcades at that point, and and then obviously PlayStation came along, and suddenly you could get that same experience at home. It was a total game changer. I think that dovetails quite well with the decline of arcades, because who's going to go and pump pound coins into something that you can almost copy with your PlayStation at home for £30 or whatever it costs?
But I don't know about you, but where I lived up, because I'm from the northeast of England, and up here, there was no arcades, no arcade bars, no. We had to travel to either like a holiday resort, or it was like going down to Leeds and lower, where there'd be some arcades. So I never really got a chance to play any of the arcades in an arcade setting.
Did Whitley Bay not have a good arcade scene?
Yeah, that's still about 2.5 hours from me.
Okay, well, fair enough. I'm in the same boat, really. For me, I was lucky enough to have this minicab office. Like I said, this minicab office that always had 4 or 5 arcade machines in, and that was what captured me. And then I guess there was a few machines in the bowling alley or whatever. But yeah, the real arcades were all down on the coast. So Ramsgate, Broadstairs, all those places. Margate, just Brighton at the time. But I think that, stepping into those places was amazing, because you'd just be like 100 machines rather than 3 or 4. So yeah, it was a very rare treat.
I can just imagine the smoke-filled halls. Yeah.
Yeah, well, definitely of its time. But, this is definitely something I've tried to capture in my book. Those arcades, sticky carpeted arcades with smoke and just general ambience of flashing lights and all the noises. Evoke that exact memory.
So you say that you're self-publishing this book, the new one. If you don't mind, what is the process of self-publishing?
Well, this one, I've not got massive expectations for this, because, like I said, it's pretty much the first thing I wrote of any substantial length, and I think it's a nice little nostalgia piece. I think it's a fun story. You can put as little or as much into these things as you want. I mean, with my first novel, we had about a 6-month lead time, and if you want to do it properly, you need to get advanced reader copies out there and start getting a bit of a buzz and getting people reviewing it on their social media and their blogs. But it is a very saturated industry, so you are not going to, unless you've got a huge marketing budget, you're not going to get thousands of reviews. And it's just being realistic, I guess. But the process for actually self-publishing these days is so easy, which is one of the problems of the industry, is anyone can do it, and I suppose there's no quality control to self-release on Amazon. You can release any poorly edited piece of junk. So for me, this particular book, aside from the writing procedure and getting it read by multiple people and collating feedback, and besides the actual writing of it and finishing it, once you've done that, you need to design a cover or get someone to design a cover. You need someone to typeset it, essentially to format it for ebook and print. And then it's really just a case of uploading it to Amazon on Kindle Direct Publishing. And you can set the date and you can release it tomorrow, or you can release it in a year. It's really up to you and how you want to play things and what your strategy is. But like I said, for this particular book, I don't have that high expectations. I just want to get it out there and get people reading it. And I'm, only be a couple of quid for this particular one. I'll be on Kindle Unlimited. And just want to get it out to as many people as possible.
So
I'm happy to advise if you go down that route. And
so it might be different now, but I looked. It must have been about 10 years ago. I think when the Kindle sort of first came out.
Yeah.
And I looked to do self-publishing, and the cheapest place I could find, they were saying that you'd have to pay £300 up front, and then they'd do the rest, sort of thing.
Yeah, there's plenty of these places that will either do all of it for you or do bits and bobs. But to be honest with you, you don't need them anymore. They're just going to charge you more for things you could do yourself. I mean, they call a lot of them vanity presses. They'll essentially release your book and you pay them to do it all, but you're always paying inflated money. And print on demand is the future for independent publishing, because no one wants to print off 2,000, 10,000 copies of a book and then have them all returned to you when they didn't sell. So print on demand, Amazon, the quality, as long as you do your proofing correctly and make sure it's done right, the quality is almost indistinguishable from a normal print run. And if you sell 10 paperbacks, they'll print 10 paperbacks. There's no thousands of books coming back to be pulped like Alan Partridge bouncing back or whatever.
I mean, I guess that sounds similar to like our sort of like outfitsy stuff that we sell, because it's all print on demand. Because if you want to get the products to sell for, like, I can get a hoodie printed to sell for about £15, but I'd have to buy 10,000 hoodies.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can't afford that. I'd rather have to sell the hoodies for £20 to £25 and have no outlay cost.
I think it's in many aspects of where we're at as a species, it's the way forward, because it's less waste and it's just more efficient, isn't it? And like you say, you could make 10,000 items of clothing, you might get the sizing and colours wrong and end up. It's such a outdated concept, I think, of getting all, like, back in, I don't know if you're ever in bands, but I used to record my album or demo or whatever and get 1,000 CDs made up, and you end up with 800 copies of your CD at your parents' house or whatever in boxes gathering dust. And nowadays there's just no need, because of in video games and music, it's electronic format. There's no need to create all this waste. So I'd call it a positive thing in most industries, that on-demand services.
So the book, it's not out yet. Do you have the release date?
May the 30th, it'll be out on ebook, and then it'll follow on paperback, print on demand from Amazon, probably a couple of weeks later. If you do want to get your hands on a physical copy, I mean, I prefer to read physical books, but everyone's different.
I like physical books. I mean, I bought, I think it was the blooming, was it Eragon? Some stupid sci-fi book that some like 15-year-old wrote. And the book was actually not too bad. Then they did a movie and it was atrocious. But I bought like a box set with all three books, and I read about the first 3 chapters and I never touched it again. But yeah, it looked nice on the shelf.
At least you can pass it on to somebody else, you know. And, I was gonna say something there. Oh yeah, so I mean, talking in that realm, I mean, with your video games, I think people of our age are kind of tend to be collectors, but nowadays no one cares. They just get it on Steam or download it on the PlayStation Store. Do you like to collect physical games? I see you got your cushions there, which
I
suggest you do like
used
to collect.
to have over 30,000 games and bits and bobs,
Wow.
but over the years, moving house, and it's a nightmare moving all these boxes around of stuff. So now,
Yeah, of course.
all I really collect now is I've got is it the Blaze Evercade?
Yeah.
It's like a little tiny handheld, but it's got physical cartridges. And each cartridge is like 6 to 8 games on. And like there was a Codemasters one, and it had all the Sensible Software games on. And there's a Gremlin one which had like the Actua Soccer and some other Mega Drive sort of games. Yeah. And I find that quite good because each game's only like £15. And it's a nice thing to collect. And they release a new game every couple of months, so there's not 1,000 games to sort of like try and buy.
That does sound good, yeah. So it takes up a lot less space. So when did you sell your collection?
Oh, it was when I moved. I used to live in Glasgow, and when I was going to move back from Glasgow, it was like I needed money to put down for like the house and everything, and so I just went and sold it all before I moved back down to like the UK.
What year was that?
Oh God, that was only like 2017.
Okay, so you certainly didn't miss out then, because I think that was one of the quite close to where things were peaking out in terms of value.
Yeah, I mean the stuff that I sold, I think I'd have paid roughly about for all the stuff that I didn't sell it all, but the stuff that I sold, I think I paid about £2,500 for it all, and when I sold it, I got about 6,000 back.
Because I used to run a video game shop with Tom Humphrey, who I founded business with originally. We started a retro video game shop called Retro Game Base, which ran in Streatham from 2012 to 2017, and we opened the first bar in 2014. So yeah, that shop opened up doors for us to start the bar business. But yeah, it was a fun little business. But even during that time, the availability of games on eBay, the value of like your Common and Garden Mario Karts and all the sort of games people want regularly, the value completely skyrocketed. So it became difficult to get enough stock to make that a viable business. But I think that was when things really exploded in the mid 2010s. With retro collecting and the value. I mean, you've probably seen what the value of sealed games, what happened to that in the last 5-6 years.
It's crazy. I mean, I used to love going to like car boot sales and stuff, but I think now people know how much things are worth. Whereas before you get them for like 20p, 50p, whereas now it's like 15, 20 quid. It's like,
everyone can check on eBay or whatever, but back then, this is it, sort of early from 2000 onwards. If you think the value of all those 90s consoles was really low, and everyone just, I've got a PS2, I'm just going to buy all PS2 games, I don't need all this stuff. People were just almost giving it away right up until the early 2010s, and then, like you say, people became a lot more savvy about the value of these things, and the boot sales, you could pick up bargains left, right and centre if you're willing to put in the yards. I mean, we sold part of a collection for somebody who'd hoarded tens of thousands of items mostly from boot sales, and they bought it all up in that early 2000s when Gumtree, boot sales, charity shops, you could just get amazing bargains. But that era is in the past, along with our boxes of CDs and boxes of hoodies and boxes of books that we were just talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that's killed it for me, I mean, I don't mind paying a premium for a sought after game.
Yeah.
I think anyone just sort of sees a Mega Drive game or a Super Nintendo game, and they basically just think that just because it's old, it's worth £50. And it might be like
Italian 90 or something.
And it's like, I want 50 quid for it. It's like, why? It's worth peanuts.
That always used to make me laugh when people had we get it sometimes with the arcades because some idiots put a Teenage Turtles cab on eBay for $2,000. They're like, oh, you could buy this from us for $2,000. I'm like, no, we're not going to pay you $2,000 for that. Yeah, no, completely. I'm the delusional people.
Yeah, it's a crazy world that we live in. I mean, I think people will try to sell nothing for as much as they can get.
But at the same time, there's a lot of just stuff that people don't want. So if you've got the time and effort you can get a lot of stuff for free as well. So it seems to be one or the other.
Yeah, I mean, I know it took me a long time because I've got a room behind me, a spare room, and I've got like my Sega Saturn and my Nintendo 64 set up.
Yeah.
And I was looking for a 32-inch CRT sort of classic TV. Yeah. And everywhere was selling them for like £150, £200. And I went to visit one of my old girlfriend's sort of like family down in Sheffield. And on the way back, I just went on Facebook Marketplace, and there was like thousands that were just free. So as we were driving up, I just sort of stopped at someone's house and pushed it in the back of the car and drove off.
Yeah.
So
I mean, this is it. They are, but it will come a point where all our retro gamers need a CRT, and they've all been junked. So it is definitely not as easy to find them as it was. Otherwise, you've got to buy an upscaler and all that. But yeah, it's got to be CRT, isn't it?
And it's like you just want the retro feeling of playing an old game, quick turn on, play the game for 20 minutes, and that's it. If you have to buy the upscaler, the other, it's just too much hassle to get it all up and going.
That's the problem with a lot of modern games is the entry level is so the time required is so high, and that's so with Four Quarters, one of our sort of cornerstones is making sure all our machines are original with original parts, original CRTs. We don't use any LCD screens or MAME or any of that stuff. So it's really important to us because not everyone would notice, but there is just something slightly different about that. Yeah, like playing Mario Kart on a big flat screen telly, it's not quite the same. You can't even play Duck Hunt without. I think they produced something to make a big screen take the old guns, but for ages you couldn't play any light gun games unless you had a CRT.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can get a decent set of guns now. I think they're for PC now, but I think they're like £100 and odd just for the guns. So you have to really like the games, if you want to.
Yeah, you have to really want to play Duck Hunt.
So I guess we'll just say thank you so much for coming on. If you remind me in a couple of weeks' time, I will tweet out about your book. I will download it myself because I think I've got the Amazon, whatever it's called. Where you
Kindle Unlimited,
Kindle Prime or whatever the hell it is. And so I'll download the book, and I wish you all the best in that, and with the barcade sort of future.
Beautiful. If you're up in Newcastle, we've recently opened our 5th bar in Newcastle city centre on Dean Street. So hopefully you get a chance to go up and visit there. And if you go up there, let me know, and I'll let the guys know to look after you. We've got some great machines there.
But hopefully you'll have Virtua Cop, because I love Virtua Cop. You need Ridge Racer, Sega Rally, Virtua Cop, and Virtua Fighter 2. We've
got all those machines in one of our bars, but I don't know if any of them are in Newcastle. Well, I think at least one of those will be. But I'll dig out the list and send it to you.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right.
Again, I wish you all the best with the book.
Cheers. And hope the rest of the special episode goes well. And that you
so do I. It's going to be a long one, but it's going to be fun.
Brilliant. Take care, David.
And thank you.
Bye.
Bye.